Welcome back to The Explainer. All right, we are jumping straight into this one because today's story is an absolute roller coaster. We're breaking down a narrative that perfectly weaves ancient, terrifying folklore right into a modern scientific mystery. We're looking at part one of a saga that drags us from a 400-year-old village completely paralyzed by fear straight into the chaotic, bustling heart of modern-day Delhi and then right back again. If you're a fan of mysteries that pit pure logic against the supernatural, well, you're going to be absolutely obsessed with what we uncover today. Let's get right into it.
So picture this. You're standing in a dark, foggy forest, and you hear this single rhythmic phrase echoing through the trees. Bum bum bash. Bum bum bash. Now, in the context of our story, that is not just some random chant. It's literally a death sentence. To the locals of Berhampur, hearing those exact words means absolute, undeniable doom is marching straight for you. But you know, who's actually chanting it, and why? To figure that out, we have to rewind the clock a bit.
Which brings us to Section 1, The Curse of Berhampur, a 400-year-old secret.
Our source material drops us 400 years into the past, into this lush, seemingly beautiful village in Madhya Pradesh called Berhampur. But as you can probably guess, this place holds a terrifying secret. They are haunted by these entities known as the Nishirmolo. The lore says that every single Saturday night, 4 terrifying men roam the village streets carrying a massive coffin, or taboot, right on their shoulders. And the golden, absolutely unbreakable rule of survival here, well, as one father violently warns his son, Madan, if you hear those heavy footsteps and that chant, you hide. You do not look at them, and you wait in dead silence until it stops. Because if you make eye contact with the Nishirmolo, yeah, you're not surviving the night. But of course, human curiosity is a dangerous thing. Madan, he's just eager to meet his buddies for some drinks, so he heads into the forest on a Saturday night. Almost immediately, he hears them. The heavy footsteps, the chanting. At first, he does exactly what he was told. He hides in the bushes, literally holding his breath as this terrifying sound gets closer. But then, he peeks. Thinking they've moved on, he steps out from the shadows. Big mistake. Instantly, he hears those deep rhythmic voices directly behind him. He turns around and boom, the 4 men with the coffin are right there. The source tells us that later that night, Madan's father finds him near a banyan tree. He's totally paralyzed, his body is rigid, and his eyes are just wide with this unspeakable, unimaginable horror.
Moving on to Section 2, The Green Nectar Mystery. Ancient myth meets lab.
Now let's jump 400 years forward to modern-day Delhi. Enter our very scientifically minded protagonists, Meghna and her roommate Ishita. We get this really fascinating contrast here. On one hand, Meghna's waking reality is super pragmatic. She's a researcher in Professor Jaydev's lab working under this insane pressure to finalize a complex scientific antidote in just 3 days. Talk about high stakes, right? But on the other hand, her subconscious is a total nightmare, literally. Every time she closes her eyes, she's transported back to a dark, foggy forest, one that sounds exactly like 400-year-old Berhampur. She's relentlessly chased by this massive, monstrous bird. And right before she wakes up, she crashes into a tree where this mysterious green water is dripping from its twisted branches down into the shadows.
Desperate to find a breakthrough for their antidote project, Ishita starts digging around and pulls out this ancient book of folklore. And right there in the pages, she finds the legend of the Mrityunjay Amrit. This legendary, life-giving green liquid, or nectar, that supposedly drips from one specific tree only on full moon nights. Now, when Ishita shows this book to Meghna, all the blood just drains from Meghna's face. Why? Because the illustration of the tree in this old book is a perfect exact match for the dripping tree from her nightmares. Suddenly, these 2 hardcore scientists realize the answer to their modern lab problem might actually be buried in ancient myth. And this crazy coincidence completely hooks Meghna, pushing them into making a pretty dangerous decision.
Which kicks off Section 3, Journey to Berhampur, Seeking the Truth.
Okay, so the girls know they can't just waltz into a deeply traditional village and start asking about magical dripping nectar. They need a cover story. Here's the plan they cook up. Step 1, endure a grueling 5-hour bus ride and pretend to be university students doing a boring academic research paper on local villages. Step 2, use that polite academic cover to charm the village mukhya, the chief. And step 3, it actually works so well that the mukhya insists they stay right there in his own home instead of renting a room. It is a perfectly logical, sterile plan for 2 city scientists trying to extract some data.
But guys, Berhampur is anything but logical. Almost immediately, the environment itself aggressively reacts to them being there. The second they pass the village gates, this sweltering sunny heat instantly vanishes, replaced by a dark, howling storm that totally shocks the locals. Then, the moment they step into the Mukhia's home, the sacred temple lamp inside just suddenly blows out. That's a massive omen of misfortune, by the way. And if that wasn't enough, over at the local temple, the village priest looks up and sees these dark, unnatural shadows swirling right in the storm clouds. It's like the village's 400-year-old dark past is waking up simply because Meghna has arrived.
Let's look at Section 4, the ancient royal palace, echoes of the past.
While they're settling in at the Mukhia's house, his son, Anuj, actually kind of mocks their research. He tells them the only historical thing in their whole superstitious village is the 400-year-old Raj Mahal, the ruined palace of King Surajban. Driven by this desperate need for answers, the girls actually convince Anuj to sneak them out at midnight to go check it out. They manage to climb through this jammed window into the dusty, abandoned palace. But here is where it gets super weird. Once inside, Meghna is just hit with this massive, paralyzing wave of déjà vu. Every single corridor, every stone archway, all the architecture, it all feels impossibly, intimately familiar to a modern-day scientist who has literally never set foot there before.
And that takes us to Section 5, Awakening of the Dead, Midnight Chaos.
All right, everything we've talked about so far is about to violently collide. Let's track these parallel events that all start unfolding exactly at midnight. At 12 a.m., the trio sneaks into the pitch-black palace. Shortly after, that horrifying chant, Bum Bum Bash, suddenly echoes through the howling storm outside. The panicked priest wakes up the Mukhia, and they are completely terrified, because the Nishirmola were supposed to have been asleep for years. At that exact same moment, back inside the palace, Meghna, Ishita, and Anuj hear the booming sound of heavy soldier boots marching through the empty stone corridors. And, simultaneously, way out at the edge of the forest, two local gamblers named Sampat and Kapta are absolutely frozen in sheer terror. Why? Because four men with glowing red eyes are emerging from the storm, carrying a massive, heavy coffin. And then, the absolute peak terror hits. The source describes how these four Nishir Molo stop dead in their tracks right in front of the paralyzed gamblers. Suddenly, the wind completely dies down. Dead calm. The glowing red eyes lock onto the two men. And then, the coffin opens. The taboot opens. Whatever is inside that box is so unspeakably horrifying that the gamblers let out a blood-curdling scream. I mean, a scream so loud it pierces right through the storm and is heard by every single terrified villager locked inside their homes.
This brings us to Section 6, the unsolved mysteries, questions remain.
So, we are left staring at absolute chaos and some seriously terrifying puzzle pieces. First off, what on earth emerged from that open coffin that was terrible enough to make grown men scream like that? Second, right after that scream echoed, a heavy locked door suddenly swings open inside the palace right in front of Meghna and her friends, so who or what just walked through it? Third, how can a pragmatic city scientist feel entirely at home in a cursed 400-year-old royal ruin? And finally, does the Mritsyunjay Amrit, that green nectar, actually exist in those dark woods? Could it really be the key to saving Professor J. Dave's research?
It really all boils down to one incredibly provocative question. What is Meghna's true connection to the 400-year-old curse of the Nishirmola? I mean, her mere arrival woke a sleeping curse, brought a violent storm, and seemingly summoned the Taboot straight back from the grave. Is she just a victim of this folklore, or is she somehow the cause of it? It's this brilliant, terrifying clash of modern science and inescapable ancient doom. Well, that is all the time we have for the Explainer today, but this story definitely leaves us desperately wanting to know what happens next. Thanks so much for joining me, and as always, keep questioning the unexplained.